The CBC's Evan Dyer is doing double duty right now. He is in Ottawa following a reaction to Brussels and, of course, covering the budget. And I say, of course, because today did begin as a budget day. Of course, events now in Belgium have overtaken that somewhat. So, Evan, let's begin with Brussels. What are you hearing from the government on that front?
Well, actually, a short while ago, Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale and Foreign Minister Stéphane Dion came over to a mic just behind me and talked about this. But earlier we saw a statement also from the Prime Minister. Perhaps we could get up aboard. Justin Trudeau said, "We will continue to work closely with our allies and the international community to help fight and prevent terrorism here and abroad, and to bring to justice those who are responsible for planning and carrying out these senseless acts." Just a moment ago, Ralph Goodale was asked if there was any thought to actually postponing the budget in response to these attacks, or perhaps any concerns about security here on Parliament Hill that might have an effect on the budget, and he shook his head. And Foreign Minister Stéphane Dion also said a few words about these attacks. Let's have a look at that.
We strongly condemn today's awful terrorist attacks in Brussels. Our thoughts are with the victims, and we stand with our friends, Belgium, and the whole of Europe, to help and prevent terrorism here and abroad, and to bring to justice those who are responsible for planning and carrying these senseless acts.
So despite what has happened in Belgium, the budget will go on in Ottawa. And on that matter, Evan, what can we expect out of today's budget?
Well, let's start with the fact that, or the aspect that the Prime Minister chose to highlight. He tweeted a little while ago about the new child benefit that the Liberals are bringing in, which is both going to be means tested and tax-free. That's different from the universal childcare benefit that began last year under the Harper government. He chose to highlight that because, of course, the middle class is going to be at the heart of this budget. The Liberals have been saying since the campaign began that that would be their main focus, and that child benefit, for many people, at least if you have children, this is likely to be one of the things in the budget that has the biggest impact on you. But there will probably be other measures in there for the middle class too. And of course, some of the questions we have about those is how will the means testing work? For example, where will the cutoff point be in terms of income for people to qualify for this child benefit? How will it be structured? Will there, for example, be a marriage penalty associated with this child benefit? There wasn't with the old one, but with means testing, there often is. So that's one thing we'll be looking at. In terms of infrastructure spending, that's another big pillar of the Liberal spending plans. And they always divided it into social infrastructure, green infrastructure, and also have talked a lot about municipal infrastructure, the unsexy stuff, as Justin Trudeau called it last week in New York City. Basically paying to repair, upgrade and maintain Canada's infrastructure while at the same time trying to push the economy in a green direction through targeted investments there. So that's something else that we expect to see in this budget. And then there's a few details that have already been announced and that we know are coming. For example, the plan to roll back the proposed change in old age security with a retirement age of 67, as had been set by the Harper government, due to kick in about 7 years. That's being brought back to 65 in today's budget.
So the government priorities are laid out somewhat for us already, but it's also interesting to note that the Finance Minister, Bill Morneau, he's already complained about starting from behind. So how does a difficult economy affect things with this budget?
Right. So if we were to take last year's spending plan and simply bring it forward to this year, we know that we would be starting much further back than last year, about $18.5 billion in the red without any new spending. So there's been a very significant deterioration in the economic outlook, the fiscal outlook, since 5 months ago when these plans were first announced. At that point, the Liberals were talking about a hard cap on any deficit of $10 billion. I think it became clear quite a while ago that this was going to go past $20 billion. You could say that if we're looking at any sort of a psychological benchmark, I think many people will be wondering now if it's going to come in under $30 billion or if it will actually be over $30 billion. But it's certainly going to be somewhere in that area. The first clause, if you like, in the mandate later given to Finance Minister Bill Morneau instructed him to cling to the fiscal anchor of not increasing Canada's debt to GDP ratio. So I think that's another benchmark that people will be looking at. Will this deficit be big enough that Canada's debt to GDP ratio actually goes up? And I'm sure the Liberals will have been playing with the numbers and doing all they can to avoid that happening.